Daybreak Africa is your one-stop top-notch breakfast show that brings you all the interesting stories happening in and around Africa.
Because we have all the morning essentials,
including the latest news, sports, weather, and events. And of course, the people.
Daybreak Africa on Television Nigeria.
Weekdays, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Good morning, Abuja. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Africa. Good morning, everyone. It's another bright and beautiful morning right here in the city of Abuja, and it is our pleasure to welcome you on today's edition of your one-stop breakfast show, Daybreak Africa on Television Nigeria. My name is Elvis Oga. Welcome on board.
So because you know I was going to say one stop, you had to say it before me. Good morning. My name is Susan Achin.
Good morning.
Welcome to Daybreak Africa.
Good morning,
Good
Susan.
morning, Elvis.
I feel very fine doing this with you.
Well, I feel great too. And you look good, by the way.
Yeah, you actually looking awesome.
You look like in South Savannah today.
Oh, I'm actually not central. But yesterday, some special envoys to different countries gave a letter of credence to President Muhammad Buhari, and the president didn't hesitate to seize the opportunity to pinpoint his 9 areas he will be leading the country for the next 3 years.
Next 3 years.
Yeah, which actually the time remaining for his administration to actually roll by.
Wow, I can't believe that we are heading towards the next years. You know, I mean, another administration is by the corner, and we can see that although sometimes we do not see the things that happen, we always keep saying that it always seems like when you are far, you know, you can see more clearly than when you are close by. So we see that people have actually been sending their commendations, you know, to the president. We have our complaints here and there, but of course we know that the president has been doing his best, and we hope that the next years will even be better than this one.
All right, in a nutshell, people have actually been kind of worried concerning a whole 9 areas and 9 points, because they have been trying to assess the extent to which we've actually progressed with the 3-prong agenda of his administration overall, talking about corruption, economy, and then the fight against insurgency or insecurity, and now broaden it into 9 areas, even though we can actually still find these fall in between or fall into this or within these 3 agendas. But people have actually been saying, okay, if we're saying 9 areas, how well are we going to move this? Because they have been trying to assess the much we've actually been able to record.
How far have we come,
in
so
the past
far?
6 years. I want us to talk about that.
Well, the truth is that I do not think that it will take just one administration to solve the issues of this country. Sometimes we blame it on administrations, you know, we blame it on the leaders, you know, at a certain time. But we can see that these things actually started from way back. And administration after administration, we keep saying, okay, why are these things not being sorted out? But I think that everybody that comes will have to do their bit, you know, wait for the next person to come. So how far have we gone? Well, the issue of insurgency has been literally in our faces. You know, the advent of COVID-19 shook the economy. So, in 2020, so we know how much we knew that our economy has always been somewhat unstable, but we saw that COVID-19, the impact it had was not just on the country, but internationally, and it's a worldwide pandemic. So we saw how much it affected every other person. So the economy was actually greatly adversely affected.
I
This
like
year.
I like your line of thought so much, because you were talking about the challenges that have actually been facing any nation.
Yes.
May not be able to, we cannot be able to address it within just an administration or even within 8 years. So that's more like we campaigning for continuity in the kind of way, because
yes.
we normally talk about government as a continuum, and then we've not really seen
but
that.
We've really
in
seen
place.
that.
We've not really seen that in place in this country, except for the fact that when President Muhammad Buhari came on board, we saw that he tried to continue with some of those things that he felt they were in line with what he wanted for the country to an extent, and then he didn't just come and then start his own thing. And like you can actually pinpoint so many projects that he completed, and he's been kind of like the rail system, and
exactly.
you can count
that
on
has
that
been on the front burner
so
as well.
I think in a nutshell, in the long run, we should be seeing more of that from the country, because by the time we have so many abandoned projects in the country, and that
the
calls
truth
for serious concern.
actually, the truth is actually that if you were holding a particular position and then I came in, I always will have my agenda, because when I'm not on the seat, I'm seeing, different things that I could work on and I could change. But the issue is, what exactly does the country need at the moment? It's about putting that in front, such that when another administration comes, there is that continuity. Because we have different agendas, but what exactly does the country need? And what is really bothering the people? So I think we should look at it from that angle.
All right, it will not be complete. It will not be a complete package. If we talk about some of those 9 areas, the president say he will be leading this country, or steering the leadership of this country in the next 3 years, which are going to be the remaining years under his watch. And he was talking about building a thriving and sustainable economy. He also talked about enhancing social inclusion and reduction of poverty. He also talked about enlargement of agricultural output for food security and export. And then he is so bent on attaining energy sufficiency in power and petroleum product, and expansion of transport and other infrastructural development. He also talked about the expansion of business growth, entrepreneurship and industrialization, and then the expansion access to quality education, affordable healthcare and productivity of Nigerians. Then he is bent on building a system to fight corruption, improve governance, and create social cohesion and improve security for all.
To be very sincere, this is a lot, and this is literally our problem.
Exactly.
Every single aspect that you mentioned is a place that we really need to look into. When you're talking about agriculture, it got struck in my mind. I was like, well, this issue of agriculture, we're still talking about harnessing, having more improved systems, importing and exporting and all that. And the issue of moving from subsistence farming to more commercial, where we can see how we can generate more revenue and all that, is still very disturbing at the moment. But, well, he has mentioned it, and, of course, we'll be looking forward to see how far.
All right, still talking about some of the things that the country needs at the moment, and then trying to woo more foreign investors into the country. The ease of doing business in Nigeria has actually been given utmost attention, and then largely linked to that particular drive or that move is the establishment of Kama Act 2020.
Yes.
Okay, Kama Act 2020 has actually been generating a whole lot of controversy and concern, raising a whole lot of voices and all.
Well, earlier on, we were talking, you were saying something about public hearing and all that.
Yeah.
I would have expected more, noise from the public, but we didn't really get that, except that we heard Khan and PFN, coming together to say they were against this act, and they were not having it. But I didn't really, get. I don't know if they are they are encumbered with so many other problems.
All right, having said all of that, as we progress on the program, we'll be having some guests who will be on hand to talk extensively on the Kama Act. We will be having Barrister Michael Dugeri. He is a lawyer with Austin Peters and Co. in Lagos, and he's a corporate lawyer. He will be coming from the business angle to talk about how this Kama Act will enhance the survival and the thriving of small and medium scale enterprises. And side by side, we'll be having the senior pastor of Philadelphia Kingdom Glory Church, the person of Reverend Moses Gracefield, to make us understand why the religious body or the church is actually not comfortable with this particular act. Meanwhile, we'll move over to the news desk to get the news, AM News this morning.
Your body bang, bang, your body bang, 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 your body bang, bang, your body bang. Fire. And I give us when you take a selfie, when you take a pose, you the ginger the boy. Every time you bend the low, come on girl when you take a selfie, when you take a pose, you the ginger the boy. Every time you bend the low.
Want to shoot a dope music video at 50% discount?
50% discount?
Yeah, 50% discount. Bougie Down to Television Nigerian with world-class equipment and a badass expert crew.
Oga, place your camera now. Shh. Continue.
Where was I? Everything extra.
Carolina, you bada.
Hurry up.
I know say you know this thing you did do, my girl, say you know. Your body is big and I know say you know.
Good morning and welcome to AM News. I'm Susan Achin. Nigeria on Tuesday recorded 252 new cases of the novel coronavirus, according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. The health agency in a late-night tweet put the total number of cases in the country at 52,800, with 1,007 dead and more than 39,000 persons discharged. Plateau tops the list of states with new cases with 50, while Enugu ranked second with 35. According to data from the NCDC, the country has tested 383,130 samples. The federal government has lauded the historic certification of Nigeria and Africa as a polio-free country and continent, respectively. In a statement on Tuesday, the government welcomed the development as a glorious day for Nigeria and fulfillment of President Muhammadu Buhari's promise. It noted that the president had given the assurance that his administration would provide the necessary resources to strengthen the health system, routine immunization, and ensure the country was certified polio-free. Reacting to the feat recorded, the Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Hanire, described it as a fulfillment of President Muhammadu Buhari's promise and the resilient spirit of Nigerians, especially frontline health workers, who gave Nigeria the pride of place in the Committee of Nations. Also, President Muhammadu Buhari has once again called for an end to violence against women and children in the country and around the world. In solidarity with Nigerian women and children, President Buhari said the country has made a lot of progress in the fight against gender-based violence, commending the Ministry of Women Affairs and the Ministry of Justice, lawmakers, Nigerian governors, and the police force for their plans to ensure the creation of a national action plan to combat violence against women and girls. He admitted that violence against children and women has consequences. And in the world of business, Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, has hinted on plans to meet with the chief executives of multinational companies in Nigeria to discuss the revamp of Nigerian export markets. Mr. Emefiele dropped the hint on Tuesday during the meeting of the Bankers Committee, noting that the CBN is ready to encourage the revamp of Nigeria's export sector through deliberate policies that would boost investment and job creation. While decrying the situation where many Nigerian produce of export quality were waiting to be tapped, Mr. Emefiele said the CBN, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, would ensure the facilitation of a reboot of the Nigerian export market. And on to the entertainment scene. One of the housemates from the 4th season of Big Brother Naija, Toyo Ide, says he lied about being a stripper during his time at the reality TV show. In a lengthy post shared via his Instagram page, the reality TV star said he has been living a lie and decided it was time to come out with the truth. According to Toyo, he got tired of keeping up with a lie and fake career path he had created for himself which made him feel like a fool. He caused a lot of stir and gained attention when he told viewers of the reality TV show during its premiere that he was a part-time stripper. Toye said his ultimate strategy had turned back to hurt his reputation and brand. Well, like the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. And that's it on AM News. I am Susan Achin. Daybreak Africa will continue shortly. Stay with us.
There are a lot of false information about the coronavirus. These are the facts. People of all ages can be affected by the coronavirus. However, older people and people with pre-existing medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes, heart diseases are more vulnerable to the disease. It is not for old people alone. Gargling salt and warm water or chewing garlic and ginger cannot prevent the virus. Drinking alcohol, hot lemon, palm oil or chloroquine will not kill the virus. The virus cannot be transmitted through mosquito bites. Antibiotics do not work against the viruses. Antibiotics work only against bacteria. Boiling pineapple peels, lime and ginger does not kill the virus. Putting raw onions in rooms will not ward off the virus. Using or spraying Dettol, special oils and water all over your body cannot kill the virus. There is no scientific evidence that cooking, drinking or eating any of these is an effective treatment for coronavirus. Do not self-medicate and take responsibility by sharing only verified messages from health authorities such as NCDC, Federal Ministry of Health and WHO.
Welcome back. This is still Daybreak Africa on television Nigeria. You just got the news right there from our news desk, and it's about that time we go to the national dailies to see some headlines we have rocking the front pages of the national dailies this morning. I would like to begin with Susan. Then tell us which of the national dailies she's got on her desk.
Okay, we are starting with the Business Day, and it reads, just below the nameplate, here's what Nigeria must do in 5 months to fuel economic rebound. Wow. Is that possible? Beside that one, we have import waivers boost modular refineries, but troubled ports may hinder investment. And then under that one, CITN in PH strategies on post-COVID tax environment. That you can see on page 2 of the Business Day paper. And under it on page 4, as petrol price rises, outrage grows over PEF's 50 billion naira annual levy. And that does it for the Business Day newspaper.
Let's quickly move on to this day newspaper to see headlines we have from that publication. And above the nameplate, banks to take over electricity bill collections. President approves cost reflective tariffs. Silver, PIB to enthrone indigenous control of oil sector. That can be found on page 5 of this day newspaper. And below the nameplate, CBN moves to unveil prosecute companies for FX abuse over invoicing. And the banner headline we have from this day newspaper this morning reads, Buhari list economy, poverty, 7 others top priorities in next 3 years. We actually talked about that earlier on. And it's interesting. Let's see how that unfolds. And then at the end of the 3 years, I just hope that we'll be able to say we've really come far.
3 years is not that much, really.
Yeah. Okay. Below that, precious stones from Zamfara. That's actually the picture story there, where Governor Bello Metawale was actually the villa yesterday to show president some gold bar, and then some people were actually very happy that it's now official because they have been seeing Nigeria as a producer of gold, but it has not been reflected.
Much has not really
heard about it, but it's actually good. And I'll take this last one here from this day newspaper this morning. Southwest states reject FG's bid to regulate regional security agencies. You can check page 19 of this day newspaper to get the detail of that particular story, and then you do well by picking a copy of this day newspaper for details of these stories and even more.
Okay, moving straight to the Daily Times. Editorial reads, just above the nameplate, e-learning and matters arising. Below that, Nigeria's 2020 GDP contraction equivalent to entire 2021 budget. Wow. You can get that one on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper. And if you look at below that, the figures are written 34.02 trillion naira real GDP, and then 15.89 trillion naira nominal GDP. That's Nigeria's second quarter GDP report by the National Bureau of Statistics. And then under you can see the tally where it is more expatiated, the figures written there. But then below that, corruption, Malami didn't witch hunt anybody in Magu probe. Well, beside that, journalist attack, NUJ Daily Trust flay Fani Kayode's attack on reporter. You can see that one on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper. And then the last story reads, Legislature reps get Niger Delta Development Commission NBET audit reports. That is on page 4 of the Daily Times newspaper.
All right, and on to the Guardian newspaper this morning. We begin with the banner headline, which reads, Nigerians consume 293 billion naira electricity in 5 months.
Wow.
Discos failed to remit 236.5 billion naira. CBN moves to address liquidity crisis. And then below the picture story, almost all the national dailies this morning has a picture story of Governor Matawale Bello.
Showing the precious
stone to President Buhari. And below that, ACF chair Ogbe warns North destroying self. You can actually get more on that particular on the page 24 of the Guardian newspaper. And then below the nameplate and above the banner headline, we have some interesting headlines here. Chloroquine potent for COVID-19, says NAFDAC. Check page 2.
Here we come again.
The Guardian newspaper. A whole of back and forth
This
stories.
is too much of back and forth. I don't really know why we cannot just make it.
At the long run, when I remember
decision.
that countries like Russia have actually come out with vaccine, it's to give me some super relief to an extent.
Well, anyways.
All right. Beside that, we have AUG inquiries, payments, contract, others in report on NDDC and NBET. Check page 4 of the Guardian newspaper for detail of that particular story. And then we have this one here. Like polio, we can defeat COVID-19, says Buhari. Recession likely in third quarter of 2020, minister warns. And that does it for the Guardian newspaper this morning.
Third quarter, we already did third quarter, aren't we now?
So they have actually been talking about an imminent recession that's actually looming. So we need to do all we can to keep our heads above the murky waters of recession.
All right, now moving on to the Daily Sun newspaper, just beside the nameplate. I'll focus on 9 priority areas in the remaining part of my tenure. Of course, that one is set by President Buhari, and you can get that one on page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Just above the banner headline, foreigners buying gold with arms in Zamfara, Matawale. Interesting. The banner headline reads, FG issues flood alert for Nasarawa, Kebbi, Rivers, Anambra, 6 others. You can get that one on page 26. And below that, 2 die, 1 missing, houses destroyed in Jigawa flood. Wow, very sad one there.
Quite sad.
Yeah, really sad. We can see a picture of some students, NYC students or so, if I'm not mistaken. But then below that, police constable applicants undergoing screening at the police headquarters Abuja. Okay, and then below that, 2023 coalition set up committee to shop for Igbo president. Page 26 and 28 will give you full details of that story. Okay. Then, beside that one, FG begins work on new development plan. Below that, Unilag Governing Council approves Ogunshola's appointment as acting VC. And lastly, NAF jets kill top ISWAP commanders in Borno, page 5 of the Daily Sun newspaper reads. And that does it for the Daily Sun newspaper.
All right, the next paper up for review this morning is the Nation newspaper, and we take a look at headlines from top to the bottom of this publication. Just above the nameplate, Fani Kayode under fire for attacking reporter. That story can be found on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. That story was actually everywhere yesterday.
Trending.
And you want to know if the attack was verbal or physical, pick a copy of the Nation newspaper to get a hold on that. We have this here, NAFDAC, chloroquine kills COVID-19 at early stage. 9 states warns to prepare for heavy floods from September 6. That can be found on page 7. And then on page 5, Unilag Council ratifies Ogunshola's appointment. And then the inside story is talking about Edo and Ondo election for 2020. And below that, CBN banks to save jobs in aviation, media sectors. The banner headline we have from the Nation newspaper this morning reads, Chinese loans, row grows in house over investigation. Lawmakers protest to Gbajabiamila. Committee chair justifies action. And then beside one of the picture story, Nigeria has defeated polio, says Buhari. World Health Organization gives pass mark. And the last story I'll be taking from here, which is actually linked to the picture story, which is still talking about the new treasure of our economy, talking about some gold. Governor, foreigners paying for gold with arms. You can actually check that out on page 7 of the Nation newspaper, and it's actually a very sad report where foreigners will be giving arms to indigents, and then they give them gold. And that's why it makes the move
that's
by
unacceptable.
it makes the move by the government to actually see that this thing passed through the appropriate and the right channel, so that maybe if somebody is buying from you at an individual rate, and then the government try to see how they can maybe make you see more value for what you give to the government, to actually motivate people to sell to the government instead of selling
to individuals.
All right, that does it for the Nation newspaper this morning.
Yeah, and with that, we'll come to the end of the National Dailies for today.
All right, we now move on a quick break. When we return, we'll be introducing our guests to talk extensively on Kama 2020. We told you we'll be having a barrister via Zoom virtually from Lagos, and then the senior or presiding pastor of Philadelphia Kingdom Glory Church will be in the studio live with us to talk both from the business angle and the religious angle, respectively. Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back.
Stay with us.
Benignant Trading Group is a conglomerate of partnerships. Partnership with you. Partnership through investment for profit. Investment for returns, cutting across various corporate business spheres. Benignant offers you credible 15% returns on all investment with us. Benignant Trading Group, your choice's investment management company, has become a reality with the marketplace administrators carefully selected as young bright minds who would spearhead this move into creating more prosperity and distributing them. This is what we mean by benignant. So come, be benignant with our increasing community of happy and enthusiastic investors. Why not call us at any of our offices closest to you or dial our number? You'll be glad you did. You deserve the benignant touch.
BTG is your friend. BTG is your partner. BTG is your handbag. Yes. We are that flexible to become your handbag. We are your servants too, in the sense that we are using our information we've gathered, the knowledge we've come into, the understanding and mastered to bring you profit. Yeah, BTG takes the risk for you. BTG is your conduit to become better. We also give you return on investment on a monthly basis. Formerly it was 6%, but now it's from 7% to 15% return on investment monthly, which is categorized by capital.
You can call us on 0907 685 9446 or 0909 22 97081, or visit us on www.benignantcg.com. We are your reliable conduit.
My name is Chiwendu Osisiago, presenter of Television Nigerian Business Daily. In a globalizing world, ours is to keep you engaged, informed, and educated on contemporary happenings in the business world. We therefore command a special audience of business-minded viewers who are eager to know more about business. Your business. Why don't you take advantage of our special affordable offer to let the world know about your concepts, your goods, and of course, your services? You can call us on 080-3071-6 6959 or 070-3234-9054. You can also visit us at Television Nigerian in Guzapi, Abuja, and follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, YouTube, and of course on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Your business is our concern.
Welcome back. This is still Daybreak Africa on Television Nigeria. And if you just join us, welcome on board. And if you've been with us, thanks for sticking around. Like we told you, we'll be having some guests to talk about the Karma Act 2020 in the studio. And I told you we'll be having a barrister from Lagos.
Barrister Michael Jogeri. He's a lawyer with Austin Peters & Co. in Lagos, actually a corporate lawyer.
All right, I will be talking to us virtually, that's via Zoom, on the business angle of the Karma Act. And we have the presiding pastor of Philadelphia Kingdom Glory Church, the person of Reverend Moses Gracefield in the building. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Nice to have you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here too.
You actually look nice, sir.
Thank you.
You actually do. You took it from my mouth.
Just like you.
All right.
Good morning,
Barrister,
Mr. Michael. Barrister Michael, good morning.
I think your mics are muted. I can't hear you guys.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
All right, before we return back to Michael, let's begin with Reverend in the building. The Karma Act 2020 has actually been generating a whole lot of controversy, and there's been so much noise about it. And we really want you to put it across to us. Why is the church not comfortable with this particular act?
It's okay. I want to thank you for the privilege and the opportunity that I have here to represent the church community.
Okay.
And not just the church community, but I also believe that I'm going to talk extensively or inclusively of other non-governmental organizations too.
Okay.
Because the particular act, the section of the act, which is the section 839, which has been generating that controversy, affects not just the church alone, but also other associations like the youth pressure groups. We talk about like the Arewa Youth Consultative Forum, or even the Otudua Congress, any of these other associations. Yes, all of them. They fall under that group of, and this regulation affects them also and their operations. Now, I'd like us to take a brief look at the consequences of this. Of such kind of regulation.
All right, before you continue, let's get back to Barrister and see if he's with us now. Barrister, good morning. All right, nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we can hear you.
Okay, we can actually hear you so loud and clear. Like we introduced you earlier on, you are going to be talking side by side from somebody who will be representing the interest of the church, why you make Nigerians understand the numerous advantages of this bill. Well, before we take your word, the Reverend was saying something. So, Reverend, let's continue with you.
It's okay. I was trying to say that I believe that the overall intention of the Karma Act is good.
Okay.
And also, it's like I read the abridged version of the Karma Act, and I realized that there are so many provisions there that it's necessary, and also it's good for business flexibility and also for productivity in the country. But I also believe that while the Karma Act is favorable to the business world, it's very unfavorably to the non-governmental organizations. And the non-governmental organizations make up a very large bulk of the economic activities of the country, and not just the economic activities, but the social activities and the religious activities, including even political activities, because we have pressure groups that also form the basic foundation of political pressure. And if you take away their independence, the independence of the running of the organization, and you put it in the hand of the government, then they are muzzled, they are emasculated, and they can't fulfill their statutory functions or the reason for which the association was actually created. Because, like we know, in Nigeria, there is a dichotomy between the elite and the let's say the common man. By the time they want elections, they want to win elections, they will come down to the level of everybody and try to convince them we're all together. But by the time they get there, they don't represent the interests of those who put them there. They represent their own interest. And at that level, it breeds suspicion between those who are governed and those who are governing. So we don't have the liberty for us to actually say that they have the best interest of those associations at heart. And then number two is that I also like us to look at this scenario. You see, like the religious bodies in Nigeria, especially the church, they are self-governing. Not only that they are self-governing, they are primarily the effort of individuals. And then apart from that, like as a Christian, it is not a government that calls a pastor. And it is not a government that empowers a pastor. His calling is divine, and his calling is primarily by God, and he's accountable primarily to God. Now, I also want to say that I am totally in favor of anything that would check corruption, whether within the church or outside the church. I'm not talking as somebody who is defending any form of misconduct or mismanagement within the church. But there are laws already put in place, like the Money Laundering Act, and then other laws that are like the anti-corruption practices and other laws that are already in the country. If we have aggrieved practice within the church or within any association, they should be able to approach the court, and the court should be able to examine those grievances based on the existing law. But this has taken even the power from the court and has put it in the hand of the commissioner, who is appointed directly by the president. Meaning that the executive has taken taken the power for them to make decisions within the due process of the court. Like I'm talking about like litigation and any other thing that will establish the guilt of whoever is being accused, and then they suspend the trustees of that organization. That is an organization which they contributed nothing to build. They, whether financially, whether morally, or in any other way, they have not contributed anything. I believe that every organization should have within itself checks and balances. And those checks and balances, once they are not being observed, then the court of law is there to be approached by whoever is aggrieved. So this act has robbed the church and other non-government organizations of their capacity to function independently and to stand in opposition to any form of oppression. It will become an instrument to put people in place who favor only the policies of the government and allow their position on every other thing they want to do.
All right, from your position, I can actually see that the powers of the court have actually been muscled to an extent here. But before we come back to you and then ask you some more questions, we'd like to bring the barrister in. So Susan,
all right, Barrister Michael, are you with us? Barrister Michael.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, you're welcome to the program. Nice having you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hear you now.
All right. You are a legal practitioner, and we see how this Karma Act also affects large and medium-scale enterprises. So we would like for you to expatiate on that. What is the positive impact of this act on small and medium-scale enterprises, and also the negative impact?
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for having me. Let me begin by commending you for having this kind of discussion, because Nigeria is a democracy, and I believe that in a democracy, we must try to accommodate as much as possible the concerns of the varying interests. So it is legitimate for us to have discussions like this, especially if issues are being raised with regards to laws as far-reaching as this that concern us all. So in discussions like this are very important, but it's also very important that we should pay close attention to what the experts, which in this case are the lawyers, will typically have to say about these things. Because if we don't do that, we stand the risk of muddling up issues with sentiments and emotions. Having said that, the benefits of this law to SMEs are many. In fact, it's one of the driving forces behind why we needed to amend the old law. So it has opened a leeway to a lot of benefits for the SMEs. I'll just itemize a few of them. So one of them is that it has made it possible now for a single member, a single individual to own a company. That was not possible before. So if we look at typically the way we conduct business in this country, it's mostly SME driven. We don't have the sort of corporate structures that are driving the other economies in the world. So our economy is dominated by SMEs. It was important that we amend our laws to accommodate the operations of this SME and provide them with some measure of comfort and protection that they needed under the law. So now it is possible for just an individual to set up a company, which makes things easier as opposed to the previous practice as opposed to the previous law where a minimum of 2 persons were required to set up a company. There's also the introduction of a concept known as limited liability partnership. What that means is that you can set up a partnership that it's an added form of business to the other forms of business that we have. Now you set up a partnership that you can register with the Corporate Affairs Commission and enjoy the benefits that other companies enjoy under the law without actually being a law. Then it has also dispensed with some of the requirements that the old law required that companies should do. So for instance, procurement of a common seal is no longer necessary for private companies, which will mostly affect SMEs because they are mostly private companies. There's also the provision that private companies, which in this case also falls within the bracket of SMEs, are no longer required to have company secretaries. So that takes away that expense and that additional operational cost from them. Then of course, the new law now also allows us to have meetings online, such as the discussion we are having like matters. We have been a meeting and to be recognized under the law. It allows you also to reach out to the CSA directly in making your returns or your statutory filings. You can do that online also. So these are some of the many benefits that the new law has introduced and that are of immense benefit to SMEs.
All right, Barrister, quick one about the section 839 of this particular KAMA Act that's generating a whole lot of controversies. Like the Reverend who is in the studio with us just talked about, the government has not really contributed anything to the development of these churches, and they want to sit on it and then decree how these churches should be run. What is the legality of that?
In summary, is that it allows this, that is section 839, it allows the CSC, it gives the CSC the power to suspend the managers, to suspend the trustees of an NGO, which of course includes churches and other interest groups because they are registered under Part C of KAMA, to suspend them and appoint interim managers where it believes that certain things have happened. So for instance, it believes that there's mismanagement of the association. It believes that the property of the association is endangered, such as maybe it is abandoned. And also where there's issues of fraud or mismanagement of funds of the association. And lastly, where it is in the public interest to do so. Now, it is very important. A lot of the discussions around this section have just been limited to that section 831 subsection 1 without looking at subsection 2. Subsection 2 for me really is the meat because they say the devil is in the details. What does subsection 2 says? Subsection 2 says that the CAC is only able to exercise this power if it obtains an order of the court. So I just listened to my reverend gentleman who says that the court has been removed from the system. That is not true. The part of the matter is that subsection 2 says that the CSC can only suspend, and mind you, suspend, not removal. It says suspend only if it obtains an order of the court. What that means is that where the CAC needs to act under this section, it must first go to the court, where the court will invite other parties that are likely going to be affected, listening to both sides before deciding whether or not to issue that order. So that immediately introduces into that particular section the system of checks and balances. The CAC cannot unilaterally act. It has to consult the court, who will moderate the power or balance between it and the associations that it is seeking to interfere with. So for me, really, unless the argument is that we don't want any form of regulation at all for NGOs or other entities registered under that particular law, I don't see how other way we could have done it, because this is global best practice, which is that entities that are regulated, unless you don't want registration, but having registered, there must be some form of monitoring that goes on. And that form of monitoring, the test in a democracy is that there are checks and balances to monitor it so that it is not open to abuse. The question now is, how well have this new law been structured around that issue of checks and balances? Which now takes us back to that subsection 2, which says that the CAC can only act if it obtains an order of the court. Orders of the court are not what just go and get and come out. I know there are issues of potential abuses, but it's a democracy. You know, parties are invited, arguments are advanced on both sides, and at the end of the day, an impartial umpire, which is the court, looks at both arguments and decides whether or not to go with one as against the other. I feel that there is enough checks and balances to balance the power, which again, we should emphasize, is not to remove. There's a lot of discussion about remove, take over. It says suspend. It says appoint interim managers, which means it's a temporary arrangement, usually to investigate what has gone wrong so that you can return things to normal. Lastly, we should also note that this power, if you look at subsection 2, this power is also extended to members of the association, which means if members of the association also believe that they should interfere, they can also run to court, get that same order to come back and do the same thing that the act has said that the CAC can do.
All right, before I know Reverend. Yeah, and then my colleague here will have a question. But before that, you know, if you follow the statement of the Reverend, he said these institutions are largely self-governed, which means they already have these practices of checks and balance in place already. And then when you talk about the structure which this law has actually been modeled out concerning how to carry out these checks and balance and all, you know that church is actually more like a spiritual organization, and then you have CAC, which is more like a secular organization, decide, and even the court. And maybe when they are trying to appoint an interim managers to watch over the handlings of these businesses or these churches or these NGOs, like for church particularly, we're so particular about the church now because there's a little gray area surrounding that. And you now appoint somebody who is not of that same faith to watch over, or how would the church go about appointing these interim managers to watch over in case of any breach of the interest or the intention?
Sorry, I'm not cutting you.
All right.
If you act, it's any person. Okay. Any person. I read I wasn't talking about the issue of I didn't say that the court process is suspended. That's not what I said. I said the litigation process. Okay. Because for someone to be accused of a crime, you must have to be proven guilty by a court of law before that kind of a person can be either adjudged guilty or sentenced. Now, if in a case of suspicion, I believe there are institutions already on ground that are supposed to carry out such investigations, like the EFCC, and then other financial crime institutions that the government have already. I believe that you can't just leave the running of an affair of a spiritual organization to the dictate of a secular person or a secular commission, because that is not his purview. He didn't receive the mandate. Does not even understand how the church itself was established, at the level that went into it, the pain, the fasting, the sacrifices that went into it. Like I said from the very beginning, I have never engaged in any illegal act, and my church, and I will never engage in it. And my church, the church I pastor, can never engage in anything like that. But in a situation where an instrument of government is being used to oppress the church, to suppress that voice, because even currently you realize that the government that we have, I'm sorry to say, they have crippled the opposition and they have muzzled them. So we don't have credible opposition against this government, and it seems it's only the church that's talking about the violence, talking about the insecurity, talking about the general problems of the country. And by the time you direct such a law against the church, it's like trying to muzzle the voice of the church, so that by the time anybody rises to speak anything, because these things, this situation can be easily abused. That person can become a target of the government. Not only the church, even other pressure groups. They can become the target of the government. It will empower them to carry out draconian activities, which will cripple the activities of the association.
All right, Reverend,
so now, just to buttress what he was asking earlier on. So we're talking about clash of interest now. So we have more like it. You know, so they are coming from a different angle, and the religious bodies are also coming, the church is also coming from a different angle. Now, when there is a clash of interest, who now, because yes, we're talking about checks and balances, it means that these people, since they are registered under the Corporate Affairs Commission, it means they should be checks and balances, and they should be overseen. So in a case where there are clashes of interest, you know, they are being overseen, who now oversees when there's abuse, you know, and when that comes in? That's the question we're asking.
Okay, see, I think we should keep emphasizing the role of the courts in this process. So it's not as though the CSA will sit in Abuja and just issue orders and appoint people. The court is going to be involved. And you know, the court is going to base its decision on facts. It's going to base its decision on certain consideration. It's at that point, so the issue of how do you appoint someone that is not conversant with the church, or how do you even appoint someone that is an unbeliever to manage a church? These are facts that we presented to the court by opposing parties. So there's the regulator on the one hand saying that we feel we need to intervene. And there's the members of the church who are going to be affected on the other hand, who say, no, we don't feel you need to interfere. You know, and so there's the issue of, should we come in at all? That both parties will argue before the court, which is a non-partial empire. And then there'll also be the issue of, if at all we should interfere, who gets appointed? That again is going to be a matter that the CSC is going to propose, that we want to appoint this person. And the members are going to say, no, this is the person, and the court will take a decision based on facts available to it. We should add that I think it's a very dangerous proposition to push the argument that government is against church. You know, the government we are looking at here, we are looking at the legislator, which made the law. We are looking at the judiciary, who will interpret the law, and which I have said are involved by virtue of subsection 2. And we are looking at the executive, which will enforce the law. I don't think it is possible, or I don't think it is plausible to argue that the entire gamut of the government is against the church. Mind you, the legislator, the executive, the judiciary, they are made up of many of them are also members of the church. So we're not looking at a system that is abstract, that is imported, that will come and impose on us things that we do not want. This is going to, there are a lot of checks and balances that if we give room, if we open up our minds to the system, we can both fight it. You know, we should also point out this power of taking over entities is a power that has been in our laws for a long time against in so many other sectors of the economy. So for instance, banks have the power to take over banks. CBN has the power to take over banks if they believe, and they have done it before in the case of Oceanic Bank and the rest. In the capital market, you have the SEC, which can take over capital market operators. It's there in pensions, it's there in insurance. That is not to mean that they just go about taking over entities as they want or using it to oppress their perceived opponents. There's always the court that comes in to balance that check, to balance that power. Because of course, there has to be a balance. There has to be checks and balances. And the court exists. We should bear in mind that the court is not an abstract entity. It's made up of members that some of the judges are members of our church. You know, some of them we have the Muslims, committed Christians. They are going to be there to ensure that the CSA does not abuse this power. And of course, the members that are going to be affected will usually be called upon in the adjudication in deciding whether or not to interfere or who to appoint. Members of the church that are going to be affected will be involved in that argument, and they will have the opportunity to make their case and say, no, this person you are about to appoint to run this church is a Muslim, or this person you are about to appoint to run the church is an unbeliever. And the court will look at both arguments and take a decision at the end of the day that it is fair and that it is balanced and that it's the interest of everybody. That is what the court system exists for. Unless we are saying that we don't have confidence in the judiciary at all. which of course I think.
Let's 839 side by side with other developed climes. Like, how does this function in other countries? And apart from that, I also want you to touch briefly on the fact that, you know, when you say it would be very dangerous argument to come from the angle that this law is more like against the church and all. Let's also consider the confidence of the people on our judiciary system, especially with the independence of judiciary vis-a-vis the executive, considering what has been happening in the nearest, like in the past.
So the global best practice, so if you look at the UK, for instance, there's what we call the Charities Commission, which is established by the law. It is exclusively devoted to regulating charities organization, which of course include the churches, because they are registered under that category. So if you look at it, it's a much more encompassing legal framework that regulates every aspect of NGOs, which includes churches. That was the same system that we attempted to introduce when we talked about the religious regulation bill that was defeated, I think, sometime last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember. So this, what this section 839 seeks to enforce or seeks to introduce is global best practices. What is done in other jurisdictions, which is that unless an entity is not registered, and it should be registered because it concerns the public, you know, unless an entity is not registered, once it is registered, there's always a form of regulation. Regulation is not always there to oppress or to take over or to derive benefit. Mind you, one of the grounds upon which the CSA can interfere is to protect the assets of that association. We have had cases where promoters of churches or promoters of NGOs have fought, you know, with members in between, with nobody to intervene on their behalf. You know, we have also had cases of mismanagement. We cannot pretend or run away from these things. You know, we have also had the real effect of the activities of NGOs and churches and religious organizations, rather, not churches, religious organizations, the effect on society as a whole. So regulation is not just there to oppress or to suppress. Religion is there also to protect and promote. Then coming back to, I think you asked a second question, which I can't remember.
Okay, talking about dangerous argument if they say this law is targeted at the churches.
The confidence is there, which is why I started off this section by saying that in the democracy, it's always very important to listen to all sides. So which takes us back to how this law came into effect. Of course, there was a process of public hearing, you know, the first, the second, the third, not to talk of the our legislators individually, you know, that followed up on it. What that means is that we had the opportunity to contribute to it and to shape it in the form that we want collectively. In the democracy, it's majority that carries the votes. The majority may be the right, but if they insist on something, and having made that law, we should also be open to all arguments for and against it. And if collectively we have come together to say that, look, by our nature, we don't want this provision in this law, we should be bold enough, the legislator, the system should be bold enough to change itself. We can always be open to these changes. No, we can do and undo as a people. What is important is that what works for us best. So yes, there's the issue of whether or not the public does not believe in the judiciary, the nature of confidence, but there's no alternative to it. We can't operate a system without the judiciary. And we must have a judiciary that we must all keep improving on. So yes, confidence is not as it should be, I admit, but of course it keeps getting better, and it's everybody's responsibility to ensure that we believe in the system and individually we contribute to making it better day by day.
All right, thank you very much. Just in case you're just joining us, we have been speaking with Mr. Michael Chugeri. He's a corporate lawyer and also a Reverend Moses from Philadelphia Glory Ministries. I hope I am correct. Partially. Okay. I hope to say that right when we come back. We'll have to go on a quick break right now, and we'll be back to wrap up on the conversation. Stay with us.
Your body bang, bang, your body bang, 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 your body bang, bang, your body bang. And I give us when you take a selfie, when you take a pose, you the ginger the boy. Every time you bend the low, come on girl, when you take a selfie, when you take a pose, you the ginger the boy. Every time you bend the low.
Want to shoot a dope music video at 50% discount?
50% discount?
Yeah, 50% discount. Bougie Down to Television Nigerian with world-class equipment and a badass expert crew.
Oga, face your camera now. Shh. Shh. Continue.
Where was I? Everything extra.
Carolina, you bada.
Hurry up.
I know say you know this thing you did do, my girl, say you know. Your body is big and I know say you know.
My name is Chiwendu Osisiago, presenter Television Nigerian Business Daily. In a globalizing world, ours is to keep you engaged, informed and educated on contemporary happenings in the business world. We therefore command a special audience of business-minded viewers who are eager to know more about business, I mean your business. Why don't you take advantage of our special affordable offer to let the world know about your concepts, your goods, and of course, your services? You can call us on 080-3071-6959 or 070-3234-9054. You can also visit us at Television Nigerian in Guzapi, Abuja, and follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Your business is our concern.
Alright, you're welcome back from that break. This is still Daybreak Africa on Television Nigerian, and we've been talking with barrister Michael Dugeri and Reverend Moses, and the issue is about the Karma Act that has been breeding a lot of controversies around us recently. And before we went on that break, I was going to ask a question, Reverend Sir.
Go ahead.
The issue, the fact that it seemed like there was some quiet, you know, when this whole thing was happening, because we can recall that the lawyer actually talked about
public hearing,
you know, and talking about the law passing from the first reading, second reading. You know, we know the process that is required before something's actually passed and then finally declared as a law and an act. So my question is, what exactly was happening? Because it just seems like people just woke up. I mean, the church, you know, and even other religious bodies just woke up and realized that, okay, this is upon us. And it seems like, to me, it wants to seem like medicine after death. So, I mean, couldn't there have been, you know, a process to have stopped it before it got to this point we're talking about? And if there wasn't, is there anything happening right now?
It's okay. Thank you for that question. I'd like to say that recently the Christian Association of Nigeria issued a press statement on this matter. Okay. And they said that they were invited to a public hearing of another act similar to this. That was the first tenure of the president of the current administration, and which they outrightly rejected. And by implication of what they said, they were not consulted or invited to the public hearing of this one. In fact, if you look at the This Day review, it is believed that that particular part of the regulation was smuggled into the act that was not originally part of the act.
Oh, really?
That's exactly the way it was put. That was smuggled into the act that was not originally part of the act. Therefore, it looks like the people were taken unaware.
I came across the allegation.
It's okay. So that has been the position. The number two is that there are men of God who are talking, the leaders of the church, Bishop Edipo talked. I also saw that Pastor Daybreak has come up to talk. PFN has issued a press conference. Khan has issued a press conference. Now, I'd like us to look at the church as an entity. The head of the church is not the president. And the president has no oversight over the church. When there are issues of breach of the law, that is within the purview of the law to bring offenders to book. Yeah. But for the president to assume leadership appointment, whether on the interim, I'm talking about the president by proxy, and now for him to appoint interim leaders or permanent leaders, he has no right, he has no jurisdiction in that area, because the church is a spiritual organ, and the church and the state, they are separate. This is a secular nation. This is not a this is not an Islamic or a Christian nation. This is a secular nation. Therefore, the secular government don't have complete oversight over religious activities. What they have is to provide environment where they can thrive, and also to check if there are excesses, which I am perfectly in support of. That if there are excesses, they should be laws put in place, but not an appointment of leaders. Now, a board of trustee is the governing board of the church. And as the governing board of the church, whoever is the founder or whoever is the foreperson in that ministry happens also to be the chairman, meaning that he is the one who makes decisions. Now, here is the technical part of that. I believe that if there are people within the organization who are not comfortable with the way the organization is being run, there are laws. Every organization have bylaws. They have constitutions. There are laws within the organization which they can fall back to. And if they can't handle the matter, they can approach the court of law, which it is against biblical principles. The Bible says that the church should not go to law before unbelievers. It's against biblical principles. Putting the church ahead of the government. He said the church shall judge the world, and the church shall even judge the angels. Therefore, in situations where the church is not living to expectation, I believe that the law can come in. But beside that, the government cannot have an instrument whereby they can take over the running of a church which they didn't found, which they have never contributed anything to build. They are not considered the sacrifices of those who built it.
That's the angle that's
They're not considered the sacrifices. Like someone like me, I have fasted until I was medically certified dead in order to build the church. I spend millions to assist people going to charity every year. I'm not on salary. I only live by the gifts that come from people, and I channel it directly into evangelism and also into helping people and into church building. People have made huge sacrifices to build these things. You can't just wake up and take up somebody's label without due process. And this law does not include the companies. It's only it's only relevant to non-governmental organizations and association. It does not talk about the taking over of CAC of any directorship of any company. There's nothing like that in this law. So it looks as if it's targeting the church or religious organization and other associations.
All right. When you were talking about the church having this self-mechanism to do the checks and balance and all, and then there are certain things you said when, like, the church, the government don't really found them, they don't call the pastor and all. I want to put it across to you. Are you trying to say the church is above the law of the land?
No, the church is not above the law of the land. Okay. But the law is made for people. People are not made for the law. Now, there are provisions in the law for amendments of bills, amendment of acts. When an act is found to be obnoxious, offensive, and contrary to the interest of the people, then there are procedures. And my advice is that each of the different organizations, whether church organizations or other associations, they should consult their lawyers, and then they should make a credible presentation to the House of Assembly so that they can initiate the process of amendment. But here is my problem. The stand of the government is not, they are not paying attention to the people. The government said that anybody who does not obey the law to be deregistered. Now, you can't carry out corporate activities like banking and stuff like that if you're not registered under the corporate affairs. That is oppressive, because the government is not there for itself, it's there for the people. If people tell you, we don't want this thing, your duty as somebody who represents the people is to listen to them, take their grievances into consideration, and then begin to call for a mediation or reconciliation of interests and ideas.
All right, for the want of time, we're actually running out of time. We're trying to reconnect back to Barrister, but before we now get back to Barrister, we actually want you to be giving us your last words now. Let's take a look at the involvement of the church in political activities, because that is one way I felt that they allowed this thing to pass the first reading, the second reading, and we're supposed to have people who are of the Christian faith to be in the parliament, to be in the parliament, and they did not see anything wrong with this, or did not talk about it till they passed the first reading, the second reading, and then when we analyze, in a very brief term, they analyze the involvement of church in the politics, and then the way forward, because we already talked about amendment, or trying to, maybe the PFN and the other people trying to reach out a process of amendment. Yes. And then why are other religious bodies not complaining? Why is it that it's just the church that is complaining?
Seems so. And then I think after you answer that one, just lastly, I would like to say, in an advent that you're talking about some people already coming out, to speak against it at this time, in a situation whereby moving forward, we do not get, to be able to carry out an amendment. What will be the case, and what stand we will now take, and what will be our positioning?
It's okay. Let me begin from where he talked. There. Number one, I believe that there's, like I said before, there is a serious dichotomy between the governed and the governors or the government in this country. When these people want political offices, they will come to the church, cap in hand, begging, kneeling down, asking pastors to pray for them. They come to me like that too. I pray for them. But by the time they get there, they feel they're too big for them to be controlled, advised, or spoken to, and they don't represent the interests of the church, but their own private interest. I believe that the situation is so bad that a lot of pastors keep regretting that they assist these people to get into power. That's number one. Number two is that, like I said before, the political involvement of the church is that I believe that the church can come together and have a structural system in place where they can send people to actually represent them who have the interests of the church. I'm talking about the way forward now. They can come up that way, because if things are left the way it has always been, then there's going to be continuity in the complaint, and the system will always be the same. Then number two, from the angle you are saying is that I believe that all laws are subject to amendment. All laws are subject to amendment, and the government should listen to the people, because if they don't listen to the people, they are going to have a situation where there's going to be anarchy. There's going to be anarchy, there's going to be rebellion. Because it is a democracy. Because nobody is going to just sit down and then watch things just go wrong without voicing their own opinion. In the democracy, you have the right to protest, you have the right to be heard, you have the right also to withdraw people that you sent to represent you. So that's the system.
All right.
It's okay.
All right. It seems Barrister is back on now. Barrister, let's finally hear from you. We were talking about the court. We also allege that, okay, it seems like the powers of the court has actually been taken away, but you clarified that already. But in a situation where the church is actually campaign for forgiveness, is one of the settle out of court. But now this law is trying to take people through the rigorous section of litigations and all. How does that settle with the faith of the people and the practice of the country?
Can you come again?
We were talking about, we've actually see some sort of allegations that the power of the court has actually been taken by this particular act, but you've clarified that already. But church is actually an entity, or the religious bodies are entities that preach forgiveness, and then court is one way that if you want to forgive people, you don't have to go to the court, but this law is encouraging that. So it's more like a conflict of interest. How do we separate that?
Okay, the conflict of interest, it exists between the conflict of interest in this case exists between two different systems, not within one system. So you talk of conflict if there's conflict within the law. I'm not a religious expert, so I won't talk about the forgiving nature of the church. But within the framework of what the system is trying to introduce, or what the system has introduced, is that it provides a window to remedy. And that window is that if persons have been alleged to have committed infractions, or if the property of the church is imminent danger, it provides a window that the government, in this case the CSA, can come in to say, you guys should step aside for a while we appoint someone to hold the ship while we try to remedy, or while we try to go to the root of that issue. It has nothing to do with indicting leaders of the church is a suspension. Like I've said before, it's not a removal. You can look at the letters of the law. So it does not go into indicting any member yet. You know, it's a system that provides an opportunity for everyone to come to a round table where there are issues or where there are perceived issues and sort them out. So if we look at it from that angle, rather than the perception that someone has done something wrong and therefore the person deserves to be punished, we may be missing the goalposts. I think the aim, the overriding aim of the law is not so much to suppress, to persecute, or to take over the assets of any entity. I think it is to remedy, is to consolidate, to ensure that we have a system where if members of that association are legitimately aggrieved, because we cannot claim to imagine that there's a system where every member of that association or that system is fully okay or is fully happy with the way things are being done. So if members of that association,
listening to Reverend, he said the law is actually for the people, and the people seems to be uncomfortable with it. The place of amendment. In one sentence, let's get that from you. We've fast spent on time already.
When you say people, you know the word people is being used in a very loose sense. So in a democracy, you appoint legislators to be your voice.
This particular section of the law is like concerned with non-governmental organizations.
A particular group of people.
Yeah, and they are come out to talk about this now. So in the place of amendment, in one sentence, let's get that from you, please.
That is what I'm saying. It's up to the people to talk to their legislators. They make the law. You know, it's up to the people to talk to their legislators who will go back to amend the law, or who will stand their ground to say that no, this is what we think is in our best interest. Not to forget that the law was not just, it didn't just fall from heaven. The law went through a process that involved different interest groups. It's also wrong to assume that the law is just made for the benefit of NGOs. The law is made for the benefit of society as a whole. You know, anything that is not anything that does not affect the public is usually not legislated upon. You know, once something is legislated upon, it means it has an overbearing effect on other aspects of the society. So it's not just to say we'll take aside members of the church, we'll ask them, are you okay with this? We are not okay with this. Okay, we will not do it. It's not that simple. Mind you, members of the church are just a small segment of NGOs as a whole. You know, we have religious organizations, we have a lot of charity organizations, we have other groups. Yes, definitely.
We have to just end this conversation right now. If we say we should go on, we will continue to tomorrow. I may not be able to end it, but there are a whole lot of take homes from this particular conversation already, and then we may want to continue as when necessary as it is, because we're looking at possible amendment. And like Barrister has said, if the church or the people reach out to their representative and they feel that the law should be amended, it has to be amended. And if the people say they should stand their ground, it's up for the people to, okay, we sent you for an interest, you're not representing our interest, let's recall you back. Reverend, it's been an amazing moment with you.
Thank you so much.
We hope to see you once more.
Thank you so much.
The much we can take on this outing for today. We'll now leave you with a particular package.
All right. Anyway, the package is still saying thank you very much. We've had Reverend Moses Gracefield, Uche, presiding pastor of Philadelphia Kingdom Glory Church International. And we've also had Barrister Michael Dugeri. He is a corporate lawyer and a legal practitioner. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us via live video. It's been a great time on the show on Daybreak Africa. And this is the point where we draw the curtain. We'd like to say thank you so much for staying with us. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, to take you on another beautiful cruise. I'm Susan Achin.
And my name is Elvis Oga. Do well by joining us tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll leave you with our package on our news across Africa. Stay with us and stay safe and have fun.